class. Today we're going to take a look at graphing using X and Y intercepts. Now, an X-intercept is when you cross the x-axis. One thing you want to notice is when you cross the x-axis, your y is 0. The Y-intercept is when you cross the y-axis, and notice when you cross the y-axis, your x is 0. Graphing with intercepts is a very useful way to graph when your equation is in what we call standard form. In standard form, you have some number times x plus some number times y equals another number. An example of an equation in standard form would be this one, where we have 2x minus 3y equals 12. When you have it like this, what I would do is set up your table so that you have a 0 in a spot for your x, and then you're going to do another point where the 0 is in the spot for your y. When your 0 is for your x, you're going to get the y-intercept, because when you cross the y-axis, your x is 0. When you have the 0 for the y, you're going to be getting your x-intercept, because when you cross the x-axis, your y is 0. Now, we choose these values because zeros are the easiest things to plug in, and they make a lot of things just kind of disappear. Your book will tell you to also find a third point, and you can choose any x value you want for that third point. It is fine to do the third point, but you can really tell where the graph is going to go just from the first 2 points. But by all means, use the third point in order to see where your graph is going to land. We're going to choose the x value for our third point after we find our x and our y-intercept. So let's find our first point by plugging in 0 for x to get the y-intercept. When I do that, I replace this x with 0, and I get 2 times 0 minus 3y equals 12. 2 times 0 is just 0, so that can disappear. And we're left with an easy equation to solve here. Negative 3y equals 12. To solve that, I divide both sides by negative 3. And y ends up being negative 4. So this ends up being negative 4, and I have the point 0, negative 4. Now let's find our next one by plugging 0 in for y. We are going to get 2x minus 3 times 0 equals 12. 3 times 0 just makes that disappear, and you're left with 2x equals 12. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and you end up with x equals 6. So I have a point here of 6, 0. Now, we did all of the algebra down below for these, but we could have actually found these 2 points just by doing the work in our head. Because if you plug in 0 for x for this point, this term here will disappear. So you can cover it up with your finger or your hand, and then just divide the equation that's left, because you just have negative 3y equals 12. Divide both sides by 12, or by negative 3, and 12 divided by negative 3 is the negative 4. That's something that we can actually do in our head. Just cover this up with your finger or your hand, and calculate what you need to calculate for the equation that's left. Similarly, for this next one, if we plug in 0 for y, this term will disappear. So just cover it up with your finger, and you have 2x equals 12 left. Divide the 12 by the 2, and you get your 6. So that is kind of a quick, easy way to get those points. Now let's determine what x value to use for our third point. What I like to do is, if I get these, and notice these are 6 apart, halfway between 0 and 6 is 3. If it's going to be a nice neat number when you take the halfway between these two, then I would use that value, and that will typically give you a nice neat number for your y value. If it's not a nice neat number and it's a fraction, then what I would do is take the difference here and then maybe double it to get your next number. We're going to use 3 because 3 is halfway between 0 and 6. However, if 3 had not been a nice neat number, I could have said, well, this is 6 apart. Let's go 6 more and plug in 12 here. So, but it's a nice neat number, so let's use 3 here. And that's one way to make things work out nicely for you for your third point. So we're going to plug in 3 for x, and then we do actually have to just calculate out and solve the equation. So 2 times 3 minus 3y is going to be 12. And 2 times 3 is 6. Now we need to move the 6 over, so we'll subtract 6 from both sides. Those cancel. We have negative 3y equals 6. Divide both sides by negative 3. And we end up with y equals negative 2. So we have a negative 2 here, and the point is 3, negative 2 for our third point. Let's plot those. The first point is 0, negative 4. So 0, negative 4 lands right here. The second point is 6, 0, which lands over here. And that third point we found was 3, negative 2. And notice that they line up really nice. And so we just connect them. And there's our line. So that's how we go ahead and graph using intercepts. When your equation is in this standard form here, making a table using your 0 for your x and then 0 for your y to find your y-intercept and your x-intercept will be very, very helpful for you and make it much, much easier to graph equations in this form.